ourselves into the future, and there's a whole new generation of leaders coming into the industry right now. You talked about some of the traits that were important for you, like your independence and, being having convictions and courage and daring and so on. What do you think are the skills that the next generation is going to need to take the industry forward?
Well, I would think that, those three things I came up with, like curiosity, being utterly curious about the future of the industry, of the technologies, but also of what I as a person can achieve. We have only one life to live. So what's my personal ambition? And also courage to stand by one's convictions and opinions and fight for it, and not just put the finger up in the wind and say, what do the bosses want? Stay an independent person. Stay humble, very important. To never forget, even at your big successes, that you can only achieve great things with teams around you. I'll give you a little story. We had a top manager some years ago in Airbus who always talked about, of course, only when things went right and were successful, about I have achieved, I have done, etc. And once a management meeting, I said, look, here's a little story. Everybody knows Michael Schumacher, the great Formula 1 racer. And at the height of his career, when he was winning race after race, and he was interviewed afterwards, he would never say, I did, I had a great day, I took this guy over, I won. It was always a we. Michael would always say, we, the team, did this, and we, the team, did that. And that, I think, is what I mean with humbleness. Never forget that you're the leader, and you should lead, and you should lead by example. But you should never forget that you can only achieve these things. And by the way, even Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, what would they be without great teams around them? Let's assume they are geniuses, but geniuses alone can't achieve anything. So stand by your people. And here's another story, since I told you that I'm picking up my friend Fernando Alonso later this morning. Many years back, we had an accident in Toulouse. You may remember it was an A340-600 of Etihad Airlines. The test engineers have fiddled with the brakes and powering up the engines, and they tried to stop the aircraft moving by just hitting the brakes. That obviously didn't work. And the aircraft went over the barrier, nose up, and the nose section broke on the other side. It was breaking news all over the world, CNN, etc. I was outside France somewhere with the corporate jet. I dashed back to Toulouse. The jet rolled to the test area. Fernando was the chief test engineer at the time. And he came to greet me when I got off the aircraft. My first question is, Fernando, who's responsible for this? And he said, boss, you want to fire somebody, you have to fire me. I said, rubbish, Fernando, you were not in the cockpit. I mean, these guys, he said, no, you don't understand. I failed. I did not teach him. I did not educate him. I did not train him good enough to avoid this stupid accident to happen. So if you want to fire somebody, you have to fire me. I've cited that, you may have heard that before, many times in management meetings, because that's an attitude that is rather rare. So that is exceptional leadership. Remember, you are part of a team. Defend your team. Stand by your team.
Perfect transition about team, because we wanted to talk about Lilium. This is your new challenge right now. You are a member of the board as Universal Hydrogen. How do you move from a CEO of a big corporation of 136,000 people to a 600-something company?
You know what, Stefan? It's far easier than the other way around. Go from a small company to a big company, because of all the red tape, of all the administration, of all the bureaucracy we, right or wrong, have in big companies. And it's great fun to work with young people who had great innovative ideas on how to architect, how to design this new jet-propelled electric eVTOL aircraft. And for me, it's fascinating because I can still learn things. I can bring experience, yes, for sure. And you notice that in small companies, of course, you can realize that in small companies, much better than big companies. But it's fascinating because, as I said, one of my traits is probably curiosity, certainly curiosity. I can still learn things. So to adapt to a smaller company, startup spirit, new ideas. And as you know, in my time at Airbus, I was actively pushing that when we founded A-Cubed in the US and other initiatives, the HANA aircraft, because I believe that the job of top management, the CEO, is not just to look after the numbers, but to push for innovation, push for creativity. And the money we usually spend on these activities is pocket money compared to all the money we lose on big development programs, even if they are successful, like the A350. But the money we spend there is incredible, and certainly no comparison to the little money we spend on startup activities, etc. And it's so important for big companies to keep that, even in times of crisis, because that may haunt you some years down by new startups or new competitors. We talked about the Chinese, who have been more courageous or more bold to invest into new technologies, into new business models, even if we don't know when the first real positive cash flow will come. We have a vague idea about this, but people would never have invented aviation if they had waited for the perfect business concept to arrive.
And one of the things in the industry as well, Tom, we've talked about for years is, how do we have a better diversity inside the industry, whether that's gender diversity or intergenerational diversity and so on. What are your thoughts on that? How do we move that forward in a positive way?
Yeah, that's a good question, because if I look at the record of the aerospace industry, it's sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or something like that. However, if you look at, for instance, into the US, I was absolutely amazed to see that within a few years, almost all of the big US defense industry was led by women. Starting with Marilyn Houston in Lockheed. Now you have one in General Dynamics, in Northrop Grumman, and so on and so on. So it's absolutely amazing. And that was top down. That was absolutely top down. I sometimes believe that we includes a big me, have not done enough in the last 15 years or so to develop young women with a clear thought of not just them going up in the hierarchy level somewhat, but with the clear thought to make them the top leaders of the company. But it's not just gender. What is as important, I've always emphasized that, is international diversity. That is so important, that we are not just pure 90% American white male or white male and female companies, that we particularly tap into the huge talent pool, and Stefan, you are the expert here, not me, in Asia. I mean, I remember when I was traveling and I had management meetings with you guys in Singapore or in Beijing with the young Chinese engineers, I found these meetings much more exciting than the ordinary meeting, I have to say, in Europe, be it in France, in Germany, or in Spain, in Britain, because these young people were so much more optimistic about the future, so hungry to build something for their own career, for their own country. They were proud to be part of big Airbus, and to the day, I think we've not made best use of this talent pool I mean, we hire bright people in Asia, but very few then probably find a career in the main company towards the top company. And I think that has to change. What fascinated me in my job and what at the end made it possible for me to, I think, advance to the top of a company and stay there for a few years, it was my love for the international environment. I would have been dead bored by leading just a German company and stuff like that. I found it fascinating to work, and not just the international environment in Europe, increasingly the international environment that opened up with our investments in Asia and in America. And that was one of the best experiences I had, and I was really thriving on it. And I think people could feel that I wanted to build that international company, that I loved the diversity that we were having and building. And I think that's one of the biggest assets going forward. When you talk about the future, I mean, I don't hope the manager still needs to be convinced that diversity, gender diversity, but particularly also international diversity, is a huge asset that should be nourished, that should be supported, and it needs really active support from the top of the management, because if it doesn't come from the top of the management, there's so many layers in between who can block it for their own personal or selfish reasons, that it doesn't come through.
Part of the audience would like to create a startup, and sometimes we talk about technology. Which kind of startup do you see in the aerospace? If you will create, or if you are 20-something or 30-something and you will invest in the startup, which would be the field you would like to invest in?
By the way, you can invest into startups even if you're 60 or 70.
Yeah, too.
Look, I make no secret of the fact I've been particularly fascinated the last years with the eVTOL development, the possibility to create air transport means with electric propulsion, because it is hugely advantageous in terms of safety, in terms of noise and CO2 emissions, obviously, as well. And even for the market is not as crowded as it was perhaps 5 years ago, and it is coming. I think that's one of the most fascinating industries. But make no mistake, this is not just, maybe not even primarily about the aircraft. It's about the concept, the business concept. That has to be tied up with data platforms. Like the one we've been building with Palantir on Skywise. A huge thing. By the way, it was one of these things that there was never a plan for doing that. We found that by throwing a big stone into the pond and following the ripples. And oh, Jesus, man, if we can do that, what about a data platform? And we can do maintenance, we can do this and that. And if airlines bring data, we can serve them at the end much better. But you can use the data also for the operations of a fleet. You can use the data for booking of flights, etc. So I think big data platforms, artificial intelligence, smart algorithms will be even more important for the success of such startups, if you may call them like that, than the air vehicle itself. The air vehicle is important, but it is no longer the most important element.
We have less than 10 minutes left, and I want to ask you a question, Tom, just about inspiring our community. What quotes or books are you, what are you reading at the moment? What have you read recently that you think would be a good inspiration for our Alumnair community?
One of the books I haven't read recently, but some time ago, but is still worth reading is the book called Fly by Richard de Crespigny. Richard is a good friend ever since this awful accident. Remember Qantas 32, and he was in the cockpit and had to manage this catastrophe. And it's almost the same time when we had Sully Sullenberger with this flight, what was it, 1549, watering on the Hudson
River.
So the interesting thing was, here were pilots who were the right people at the right time in these cockpits, who probably prevented catastrophes from happening. But they were the right people there because, you know, they had been educated throughout their life in various ways that made them fit for exactly this moment. And Richard is in this book, in his second book, I think, Fly, is trying to apply that to different life situations. And I think it's very easy to read because he illustrates his wisdoms, if I may say so, with his own experience. Another one, I mean, don't hit me for that, but is still one of my favorites. Is still Band of Brothers, Major Dick Winters, Beyond Band of Brothers, because you can take a lot of general wisdoms from it. Why is the military so important? But because the military, particularly in war situations, you are in extraordinary situations. You are under extraordinary pressure in life-threatening situations, and this then brings certain human behaviors, right or wrong, really to the point where a small decision can lead to disaster for an entire platoon or company, or the opposite. And so things like, I mean, in Dick Winters' leadership principles, I've talked about that quite a bit over the years. For instance, one of the things is why it's so important to stay in physical shape, in good physical shape, because this is, you know, physical stamina is at the very root of mental toughness as well. And a career in aerospace, like a career in other industries, is like a marathon. Yeah, you may be successful, but you will have your downs, ups and downs, and need a lot of mental toughness also, and that comes when you stay in good physical shape. When I read a lot of stuff on aviation, but also on political stuff, I recently read the memoirs or the biography on James Baker, the great American. I think the title is "The Man Who Ran Washington." Fascinating story of the 80s. So I have a wide field of interest here.
Great, that's great inspiration for our young leaders coming up into the industry, Tom. Thank you.
Hope I could contribute a little bit.
Yeah. Over to you, Stefan, if you have a final question.
No, I think we've been through, and it was great. But I noticed 3 points which are very important for you. It's independence, curiosity, and humility. If I will say, if I can resume today's talk, that's pretty much the 3 core points which are very, I think, the key message you would like to give to the audience today. Now, thank you very much for your time. Great insight.
Well, let me
Thanks
say
very much
again,
indeed, Tom, for your time.
You're doing a good work here. Keep it on, and thanks for your interest in thoughts of an old pensioner. Thank you very much.